So I'm going to do a genetic puzzle with you today. This is problem number 12 from your worksheet on dihybrid crosses. We did 3 of these in class. I think in one period we actually covered all 4, but I'm going to do number 12, which was the last one on this video. So in genetics puzzles, especially ones that have 2 particular traits that are being crossed, they're going to give you a certain amount of information which will yield a lot of possibilities. And then they're going to give you some clues. And as you read those clues, you will decipher those clues. And based on this new information, you will start to eliminate these combinations until you're left with just one possibility, which is your answer. So the first things first, as I read the problem, I'm going to write down what I know, or what the problem gives me. The first sentence says, in pigeons, the checkered pattern is caused by a dominant allele. So first I'm going to designate dom for dominant and REC for recessive. And checkered is dominant according to the passage. So I can write down under dominant, checkered. The second sentence says a plain, non-checkered pattern is recessive. So under recessive I can write down plain. Well, that was easy. Then also, the third sentence says red color is caused by a dominant allele and brown by a recessive. Well, they gave you a lot of information here for free. So red is dominant and brown is recessive. Now that you know this, I'm going to assign some letters to the traits. I like to assign, or the best way to do this is to assign the first letter of the dominant trait as the letter for the trait. So for checkered versus plain, I'm going to use C as the letter, and the dominant trait will get capital C, and the recessive trait will get a little c. For the colors red and brown, I'm going to choose the first letter of the dominant trait, which is R, to represent the trait. And the dominant allele will receive capital R, and the recessive allele will receive little r. Now I got my letters sorted out. That's the first step. Now let's see what they ask of us. A says, show the expected offspring of a cross between a homozygous checkered red bird and a plain brown one. So they're asking us to cross homozygous dominant versus homozygous recessive. So we did a lot of these. You probably can tell me what the cross is based on the previous problems, but essentially they're asking us to do a cross between homozygous checkered dominant and red dominant, so dual dominant. So capital C, capital C, capital R, homozygous, which means the letters have to be the same, all capital, versus a plain brown one. Now they don't have to tell us homozygous because plain brown are recessive traits. The only way you get recessive is by being homozygous. Homozygous is the only possibility for recessiveness. You can't be hybrid and recessive, at least not with the simple traits that we were going to talk about. So that's what we're crossing, homozygous dominant versus recessive. You will have 2 options. In the previous video I showed you how to set up the 4x4 Punnett square, the 16 square Punnett, and fill that out, or I also showed you the mathematical way of getting all the proportions for all the possibilities. But this is Mendelian parental to F1 generation. Every single offspring, 100% of them are going to be this. And of course you can do this by the cross, but if you remember Mendelian F1, they're all hybrids, every single one of them, 100% of them. And it asks you, show the expected offspring of a cross. Okay, so that's F1. That's the parental generation. That's F1. Now they're asking us to carry this out all the way to the F2. Alright, not a problem. F2 means across a pair of F1s together. So they don't want us to cross a C, capital C, lowercase c, capital R, lowercase r versus an identical genotype. This I'm not going to do because it takes a little bit, but this is exactly the cross that I showed you in the previous video, the dihybrid crosses, so you can look at that video and pretty much follow the same directions. But you will have a 9-3-3-1 ratio here. What that means is 9 will be dominant for both traits, 3 will be dominant for one trait and recessive for the other, 3 will be dominant for the other trait and recessive for the first, and 1 out of 16 will be recessive for both. And again, for the 9-3-3-1, I made a separate video detailing what that means genotypically, but when you cross these two, that's what you are going to get. That's A. So this was all A. Let's see what B says. Carry out the F2 generation cross between a homozygous plain red bird. So in the F2, you're going to get a lot of different variations. I mean, 9 phenotypical, and out of the 9, they're all dominant, and out of those you get 4 different genotypes that can contribute to that. 2 genotypes for 3 and 1 genotype for the 1. So grand total of 1, 3, 5. So 9 different genotypes are possible when you cross the two F1 hybrids in the F2 generation. So they're asking us to carry out an F2 generation cross between a homozygous plain red bird and its homozygous checkered brown mate. Alright, so homozygous plain red means this. Homozygous plain would be 2 little c's. Red homozygous would be 2 big R's. So it's the first parent. And the second parent is homozygous checkered brown. Homozygous checkered, 2 big C's. And brown being 2 little R's. Again, they don't need to tell you homozygous. That's the only way you can get brown. Recessives can't be hybrids, at least as far as we're concerned. So now you're going to do a cross between these two and figure out the possibilities. Again, you would, again, I'm not going to set up, or I'm not going to do one, but I'll set this one up for you. So all the possibilities for the first parent would be little c and big R. That's really the only combination you can get. And the possible genotypes for the second parent is capital C, little r. That's the only way you can match up the C and the R in either parent. So when you create your Punnett square, you will have CR, 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 CR. So I just arbitrarily chose this parent to be on the top. And then CR, 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 CR. And then you get your nifty ruler. And again, you could have done this the math way. Actually, it might have been better if I did it the math way, but look at my even squares. They're all the same size. No, they're not. Oh well. So for example, when you cross the first one, you'll get big C, big R, little r. And let's just cross a few just to show you. And you can probably understand what everything here will look like. They're all going to be hybrids. And the reason for this is that each parent is homozygous for a trait. So one parent can only contribute either, so the first parent can contribute either only a small c or a big R. The second parent can only contribute a big C or a small r. So by just the pure possibilities of combination, all you can get is hybrids. You can get one C, one small c, one big R from one parent, one big C, one small r from the other parent. So everything's going to be big C, big R, little r. You can probably, if you could have done this logically, great. If not, then you can probably set up the 4x4 and you don't have to fill it out. You do a few, you can figure out that the rest of them are going to be the same. So every single offspring is going to be a hybrid for both traits. That was B. C says, and this one's I think the interesting part here, a plain brown female pigeon laid 5 eggs. So plain brown female. We know that both plain and brown are homozygous traits. So that pigeon is going to be CCRR. That's the mom. And she laid 5 eggs. The young turned out to be 2 plain red. So 2 plain red. Plain means that they have to be 2 little c's. Red, on the other hand, means they can either be capital R, or capital R, lowercase r. So the 2 can be either this or this. 2 checkered red, which are both the dominant traits. So checkered red, so it could be either this, the hybrid, it could be this, it could also be this, and it can be this. So one of those 4, because all of these genotypes will get you checkered red. And 1 checkered brown. Checkered dominant trait, so you can either be capital C or capital C lowercase c. Brown, you have to be recessive in both cases. So she laid down 5 eggs, and those are the possibilities for children. Let's see what the rest of it says. Describe the feather pigeon. Give the genotype of all the birds in this cross. Could any other type of offspring have been produced by this pair? Alright, so these were all the possibilities for her children. Her children can be the 2 that were plain red, can be one of these 2 genotypes. The checkered reds, the 2 that were checkered reds, could be one of the 4 here. We don't really know. Both of them can be any one of those. And the one that was checkered brown could be one of these 2. So now let's figure out what dad can be or what he can't be. So mom is recessive for both traits, which means if dad was pure dominant for both traits, every single offspring would be this when you cross this and this. So dad can be that. Since you're getting recessives for both traits showing up, you get recessives for the checkered versus plain, you're getting recessives for brown and red, dad cannot be dominant for either trait. If he's dominant for either trait, you will never see that recessive trait pop in. So dad has to be this. Now dad can't be recessive for either trait either, because if you have recessive in both parents, you can't have dominance. For example, dad can't be this, because if both dad has the recessive for the color, mom has recessive for the color, all those children have to be recessive for the color. They can't get that capital R anywhere. So this is the dad's genotype, the only possible combination. He is a hybrid for both traits. And when you mix a hybrid and a pure recessive, you have a 50% chance of obtaining only recessive traits. And because of that, you can also eliminate any children that are pure, because if that is a hybrid and mom is a recessive, no child can have a pure trait in their genotype. So this one's gone, this one's gone, and this one's gone. This one's gone too, and this one's gone. So the 2 children that were plain red are this genotype. The 2 children chicks that were checkered red are all this. And the one that was checkered brown is this. Essentially what's left. So that's a genetic puzzle for you. You figure out what is possible by eliminating what is impossible. Genotype for dad, genotype for mom, genotype for the 5 eggs/chicks that she laid. Thank you for watching this.